Red is good.
Red means you're on, yes.
Hi, 321, EDIC meeting. There's some copies of minutes. Josh has sent them out after the last meeting. Does anybody have any issues or points?
No, I move we accept minutes.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public speak. You said you're gonna leave early?
Yeah, I'm just here for the planning report and
Well, then
hang
I
out.
think we can just jump right into that.
Um,
No one else here.
Okay, so, so tonight there's Fort Hills on the planning board agenda. They're, proposing to do a slight expansion of their tasting room, patio, and renovated kitchen. So that's before the planning board tonight, see how that goes. Their parking lot is growing quite a bit as well, so that should be interesting. I think we had a great planning board meeting, and thank you for coming. Really lively discussion on recreational marijuana, current laws, planning board's thoughts. It was really more of a speaking session for the public, for them to talk about recreational marijuana, and I think there were voices on both sides of the aisle. And so the planning board is gonna continue that discussion on the 18th of April, so if you're interested in participating, that would be great. I think what they're gonna focus on is whether or not they should move forward on a moratorium, and that's where we're at right now. So I thought it was a great meeting though, and I think we had a lot of good commentary from the public. Other businesses, I think at the last meeting, the Hackworth building is adding retail. I believe the Marianne's Dance is moving from Cottage Street to that location. So that'll be an empty vacant spot on Cottage Street, so real estate agents, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's quite a few empties.
Yeah,
You call that the Hackworth building?
the Hackworth building.
It's owned by Hackworth?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I call it. I don't know what anybody else calls it.
I think we say Hackworth building, I think of the dance studio and stuff.
It is,
That's
but
the
it is,
building.
it's right on the
That's it.
line.
Yep.
You're in the right
It's
place.
one
The
of the
Marianne's
stands.
Dance and More is on Cottage Street.
She's
They're
moving.
relocating.
She's moved, okay. Thank you.
We do have some other developments coming down the pike, but nothing to publicly announce yet, but it seems that we're gonna have some good economic activity happening, I think, this construction season, so we'll see if people get their financing in place and they're able to move forward, so.
On Route 10, that one's falling apart?
I haven't seen anything filed officially.
that's-
I'm
that's
hearing
what I heard.
rumors, I'm hearing various rumors in the community. So I've heard that it's fallen apart, but there's been no indication by the property owners themselves. They came to the city for a pre-development meeting. I will say the pre-development meetings have been going really well, and they've been great. We've got DPW, fire, building inspector, myself, the mayor, at these pre-development meetings, and they've been super helpful for applicants coming in and trying to hash out issues before they officially file anything, and they're getting all of their answers read in one meeting, so it's been really good. But we did have a pre-development meeting with those individuals. I've heard that the financing has been tricky.
Yeah. I just heard it fell apart, but I just, didn't know.
That's all
I mean,
I
not
know.
not that anyone ever makes that official, you
Right.
know, comes out, but.
Right. I know there has been some other interest in that property as well, but again, nothing official at this point.
Yeah.
It's been filed or had meetings with.
Which property is this?
The former Tudor car dealership. There's gonna be a recreation complex, that's all I'd say, you know.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, any
Well,
other
some-
properties that you have questions on while I'm sitting here, or anything else?
What is that property next to me, the Moriarty
Yeah.
building? It's got a
Purchase and
purchase
sale.
sale agreement based on the lot being available on the, across the street.
Lot being available.
Yeah.
The one
Oh,
that
the
was the
small little
demolition
one.
delay on.
Yeah, sort of raising that
Yeah.
one building
Yeah.
and putting a lot in there.
Yeah. I heard
And I guess
that
it's
there.
gotta go through the
Historic
historic
commission.
But that's
Yeah,
only
that
dirt
sounds
I hear.
horrible then, okay. So he's actually selling that building.
Yes.
Did he
Wow.
figure out his parking issues?
Well, that's the deal, is if he has that, then the tenants can park
Park.
over in that lot.
Okay, yeah.
That's it to report.
Alrighty, I'm just gonna, since Jessica is here, she mentioned, marijuana stuff. was at that meeting, and, I had a school meeting before it, but I did speak on, as a person, as a citizen, not as an EDIC. Just to get into elaborate, but there is a lot of confusion with the legislation as far as, I guess somebody can say 95% of the work was done, but the last 5% is big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Depending on various, regulations and overlapping jurisdictions and, this and that. So there's talk about maybe a moratorium, but even that was a little bit hazy as to how that could be enacted and stuff.
Right, in the timelines. So just to sort of speak off of
Yeah.
this, the way that the law is currently crafted is that the Department of Treasury is gonna be in charge of recreational marijuana at this time, although there was something in the Globe yesterday saying that there's some ability to move it. Medical marijuana is under the Department of Public Health. So there's two different state agencies that be overseeing two different aspects of marijuana. The law states that they have until July 2018 to establish the Cannabis Control Commission and put into place regulations. Is that right, July? Or is it April? Basically, there's a 2-week window from the time that the regulations are in place at the state level to when applicants can start to file at the state level for licenses, which gives municipalities basically 2 weeks to get local regs into place. So this is where most of the planners in Massachusetts are having a little bit of a panic, like, especially if you have a town meeting and you only meet in May. How are you supposed to be putting regs into place when there aren't any regs to follow? So, so that's where we're kind of at, is I don't think the sense of the board at this point is to outlaw or prohibit outright. My sense is that they're just concerned about putting something into place that's gonna conflict with the state law once those state regs come out. So it's just a matter of the timing of the issue. And the moratorium would give the city a little bit more time to go to sort of figure out what the details are and exactly where do you want it, instead of rushing something, when the regs do come out, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still unclear as to, there was an article, maybe it was when you referenced, I saw it today or yesterday about that some people are underestimating how much revenue the state can collect because they think the tax rate is, first of all, set, I think Deb Gover said too low. And it could be a lot of money for the state. Of course, they want to use a lot of that money. I shouldn't say of course. I don't want to sound cynical. They want to use a lot of that money. They want to have a lot of money available for public outreach and drug programs and such. So, it's just a lot going on. The only thing I ask the committee right now is just to think about it when it comes up. If you have a voice, I'll be honest with you, we have the old term was head shop, but we have a shop on Union Street, and, I don't have anything myself against that type of business, but I don't know how to say it correctly. It's like when you have a business district, and all of a sudden you go from antiques to secondhand, it is a trend. And I'm not necessarily certain that trend is an upward trend when you have, my idea when they first passed the law was that marijuana would be like cigarettes. Businesses, any kind of business, I'll be silly, a machine shop could sell them if they had a counter with properly,
And the right license.
Right, yes, everything done, but the theme of marijuana shops, which there will be some, is not necessarily a theme that's family friendly or, upscale.
There are some. Colorado does have upscale ones.
I'm sure they do.
Like liquor stores.
And I'm sure Long Island might have one as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
but
yeah.
sometimes it
No,
defies.
I understand.
No, so.
My impression was that it was not gonna be like any Tom, Dick, or Harry could sell it, but that there would be state-approved marijuana stores where there are liquor stores.
I'm unclear.
Well, what was kind of interesting about the smoke shop when it did come before the planning board, because they definitely considered this, and there wasn't anything that really prohibited it, because it's a retail, it's considered retail under the zoning. And I think where it gets a little sticky and kind of interesting is how you define a smoke shop, like what percentage of the product has to be smoking paraphernalia. You go into Northampton and you go into, I don't know, there's some of the stores there that have clothing,
Yeah.
and the majority of it, and then they may have paraphernalia in the back.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up during the smoke shop hearing was the convenience markets in town. There are some of them that carry smoking paraphernalia. That's exactly what you would find in the head shop. And the head shop cards, you can't be under the age of 18 without a parent or guardian. And they were conditioned to only have clothing and art in the front window display, no pipes, something like that. Which to them, they said, well, we don't want to put our expensive products out here because we're afraid somebody might break the glass and steal it, which I'm not sure how feasible that is. But, you know, even from their own perspective, and they were very concerned about keeping their own business up and running and not running into any issues. And so the board felt that by conditioning the age requirement and the display in the front, that they were addressing sort of the proximity to the schools, the family friendliness of it, understanding that any kid can walk into a convenience market in town with no age restriction and still see these products in the back with no parent or guardian going in for a snack after school. So that's, I think, where they kind of came to that middle ground. But we have heard a lot of comments about the smoke shop opening on Union Street. There's been a lot of concerned emails coming through, so.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Interesting.
I mean, you know, we have a lot of vacancies, so, I mean, it's bound to happen.
Yeah,
You know, and,
I think it's gonna be interesting.
yeah.
Well, it's good, there's a good discussion, and it's good that they're thoughtful and
Yeah.
considering the moratorium to have the time to, you know, craft out what they wanna do. I guess there's a meeting happening in Springfield.
On the law itself.
I think so,
There's
yeah.
one,
I was
there's
gonna
one
look
in the
up the
Realtors
email.
Association. I got a flyer on that is from the real estate perspective
Oh.
of how do you, you know, deal with tenants who may be growing for their own, and they're in a rental
interesting,
situation.
okay.
I think there's a lot of tenant landlord issues
Right.
under even just a personal possession right now, so I think that's what the focus of that.
Okay.
It's through the Pioneer Valley Realtors
Realtors,
Association.
yeah, RFP.
So, anyway.
Okay, we'll go back in order here. Pascaline, do you have anything to mention?
I sure do.
Okay.
We have, East Hampton City Arts has our annual book fest coming up. And I brought some cards and I'll leave them here for anyone who wants to take some. And we have a really great lineup of events. We have a full schedule in the back. It's Saturday, April 8th. And kicking off Book Fest this year, we're launching the first installment of a new speaker series. We're welcoming Michael Musto, who's a writer for The Village Voice, and Nikki Boardman, who's the editorial director for Paper Magazine. And I think this is an interesting kind of moment. You know, the first time you do anything, it's an opportunity to learn. I think we're gonna draw people from throughout the valley to East Hampton. I went out yesterday, we distributed more than 1,000 cards to all 5 colleges, to bookstores in Montague, South Hadley, Amherst, all over the place. And it was really remarkable how many people were already aware that this was happening. And just met a lot of new people that were, you know, it was like a new kind of, you know, media professors were interested, they're gonna bring their students, that sort of thing. And we've also been, it's kind of exciting when you start something new, it's an opportunity to like practice some new things. So we're working with Casey at Galaxy, he's hosting Michael and Nikki for their pre-event dinner at Galaxy. So Galaxy is the sponsor of the event. It's taking place in the Boylston Room. We are working with KW Home. They're doing all of the staging, both for the stage and the green room. La Botaniste for all the flowers. Remind me of the name of the popsicle business?
Crooked.
Yep, they're gonna be a sponsor. They're gonna have popsicles, Abandoned Building Brewery, and so I just, you know, this is kind of like this is part of the model. We're developing a model to engage local businesses, really promoting everybody as sponsors, and we're gonna bring new people into East Hampton. that will hopefully continue to support our great businesses here. And then we also, in addition to that, there's like a whole media effort, which the word will be spread far and wide, and that's also very exciting. And then I just want it to be on everybody's radar. Cultural Chaos is Saturday, June 10th from 12 to 5. We are deep in the planning for that with the Cultural District Committee. So stay tuned at next month's meeting. I'll have a whole lineup for you then.
Thanks, wow.
And I just want to feed in, the Jazz Festival was a big success,
Yes,
and I want
it
to
really
say
was.
that people came to the high school and raved about the auditorium.
That's
The
great.
wonderful
That's great to hear.
acoustics, and it brought people that had never been to East Hampton
That's
before.
great.
So, and they were saying, how come this doesn't get used more? They were really
Mm.
very, no, I know, but it was very, positive reaction to a high
That's
school auditorium, so it should get used more.
And something on that same note,
Yeah.
New City is hosting their
Yes, I.
second of a series bi-monthly Valley Showcase or something like that. And Stan Rosenberg is gonna be a guest judge for that event. But they've got like 12 sponsors.
Yeah.
This guy just goes out and asks for donations for this little thing, and people are donating left and right, businesses are.
Yeah. Where's that gonna be held?
New City
New
Brewery.
City Brewery.
Oh, New
I don't know
City
how they're gonna
Brewery,
put everybody
yeah.
in there, it's not a big space.
There was not a very good attendance the first time they had it.
Okay.
And the talent level was also not that great. But
Is this the Valley Voices, the Story Slam?
No,
Or
no,
NPR?
no.
No.
That's
happening.
also happening
Yeah.
at New City Brewery.
Yes,
At the
which,
end of
So
April.
that's what stores
Yes.
are gonna be in April?
that's what I
They're
don't,
doing
there's no.
4 different
Really?
ones
Academy of
throughout the
Music?
valley. Yeah.
Instead of the academy.
Because I keep hearing it on the
Yeah, me
radio,
too, but
and they're
I-
not telling you where.
Yeah.
You just keep saying East
It's
Hampton.
not a big space.
Yeah.
I mean,
40,
going from
40
the-
seats or something.
Yeah, going from the academy to
I-
that.
I catered their wedding and it was 110.
Wow, wow, okay, yeah.
Right.
Well, that's.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, very good. On a plastic bag, one thing I wanna mention is, and I didn't read the article, but I guess Amherst is thinking about banning plastic bottles as well. So just,
Wow.
Wow,
it was, I thought it was very specifically aimed at UMass.
I didn't read the article, but I'll just say the Amherst plastic bottle ban being delayed, I mean, the meeting is being postponed, I think, but, I'm just letting you know about that.
But nothing about East Hampton though.
No, but it's just, I think
Just like sitting there.
it's almost tabled. And I guess it is tabled, it's not, they're not doing anything about it.
It's on their agenda.
Right,
I think
right.
it continues to pop up. I don't think they're doing anything
Yeah,
active on it.
it's, yeah, I don't know if it, number 8, there's one thing I want to share, at the last, at one of the school building committee meetings, I think it was at the last meeting, it came up, in discussion, because now we're getting into the nitty gritty of, hopefully next month or two, there's gonna be, a cost, a concept with a cost, we're getting into that stuff. But in that discussion, the topic of the disposal of the 3 elementary schools came up. And this is what I just wanna throw out. The last school building project obviously didn't have that situation because, the high school was built on the same site. So in recent history, being 10 years anyway, or maybe a little longer, we have the Parsons Street School example, and then we also have Old Town Hall, Memorial Hall, and the school administration building. So they were done, I mentioned them, the Parsons Street School was done, I'm not talking about the outcome. The process was a little bit different than the first process, than the other process. The other process is a different mayor, Mike, he established a future use committee on the 3 buildings. Now, 2 of the buildings were city property, and of course, the school administration building was school property that there's a small process of disposal where it gets turned over to the city. And that just got lumped in with the other two. You know, there was a committee on what to do with these three. The school administration building is near Pepin School, and it ended up just being sold. An architect bought it and refurbished it, and I think she's since sold it. So, anyways, it's a residence. It was a smaller site, and I think all that was done was on that particular building was a little sliver of land was taken or readjusted. A lot line might have been readjusted for the parking with Pepin School, you know, but nothing major really was done. It was sold as is. And then, of course, you know, city space, the town hall, and eventually went to city space. It was never put on the open market. There was, that kind of drove that future use committee. Memorial Hall was put out to public bid. And I do not recall, but my sense is the flavor of that was, even though the charter says the city council has say over disposition of property, the mayor drove that. Parsons Street, it seems to be that the mayor didn't drive that. And it seems to me that when the mayor at the school building committee, that was kind of the flavor I was getting from her, was that she was, you know, once the three buildings come up, she's just gonna turn it over to the city council, and they're gonna deliberate on it. That's how she kind of was talking about it. No decisions were made, nothing was set in stone. My point in going through all that and just bringing it up is just to make you aware of it. And it's, you know, I think like anything is at some point in time is to speak now or forever hold your peace. You know, if you want to be, if the EDIC wants to be involved, you know, and I think sometimes people too make a little bit, I don't want to say the word mistake, but go down the wrong direction a little bit. Just because we're EDIC doesn't mean we have to recommend that it be economic development per se. I mean, I'm not saying it can't be, but what I'm getting at is, if somebody, you know, a diverse committee decided that all three parcels should be left empty, and that was the best for the city, and everybody was in agreement for it, well, in my mind, that would drive economic development. And what's best for the city is going to drive, you know, whatever it might be. I mean, I'm being a little extreme, but what I'm getting at is I don't think necessarily you have to say, well, just because we have an EDIC hat, it has to be a business there. You know,
No.
you know,
No.
right.
They're economically best.
Yeah.
Right, you know, and I think I'm gonna say that economically best can be,
Could be housing.
well, or, but even wider.
Wide range.
Could be
Yeah, I'm saying a wide range. I mean, you know, I don't wanna pigeonhole it, you know, but you know, I don't know when, but I have no idea when that's gonna happen. However, I do know that it looks like the city vote will be spring of 2018 for the new project. And then and I'm not suggesting that the future use committee has to be before that vote. Only thing I would say though is, and I think you'll back me up, that Parsons Street was kind of mismanaged in a sense, because there was pressure, there was outside, and it'd just be nice to see whatever happens, be a little bit more deliberative and less reactive. That's how I look at it. I mean, you know, now Parsons Street has the stigma of being given away for no money, blah, blah, blah. I know.
One proposal that came in.
So,
I know.
Dave, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Uh-huh.
And I think that as, you know, the vote comes forward,
Yeah.
that perhaps there is energy and presentation put into what the future buildings could look like to
Uh-huh.
help sway the direction. And I will tell you about the Memorial Hall building was done with a lot of intention of what the future use of that building would be.
Right.
And the resolution was that they threw out their desires and accepted money.
Yeah.
So it's two examples
Yeah.
of going in different directions. You know, the Parsons Street was basically given away.
Yeah.
And Tavern on the Hill was going to be where Memorial Hall is.
Right.
And I think that would have been a much greater impact on the city had that business been here in town, and the city had taken $25,000 less. So,
Yeah. and-
just saying that, so, you know,
Well,
it's
the
like,
RFP will just have to be crafted in such a way that,
Yeah.
that the city, and that was part
Well-
of the struggle with the Parsons, was
Right.
that you want, the city does wanna get as much money as possible, but you wanna be able to fit it into the program that you want as well. So you craft it in
But
such a way
like-
that you can try to get both, or recognize that the proposal is a higher value than the money being offered. And
Right.
that's the decision that the review committee needs to make,
Right.
and that's their call, and the mayor ultimately.
right, and then a follow through on, you know, the ability for the candidate to produce what they said that they were gonna do,
Right.
because that
Right, and
fell
having financial
far
documents
short
as part of that
of
proposal process.
expectations
Yeah.
of what
totally.
the vision was proposed.
Yep.
So it's that kind of,
Yep.
Yeah, and, you know, I just think at some point, I think we'll be, I agree with you as well. I like your comments that, you know, maybe that's what we'll say is, maybe our task won't be so much to think of the concept, but to help guide the concept to fruition by asking for some standards of renderings, proposals, with the city hall, there was Old Town Hall. There was two proposals. One of them was very extensive and was by Pace. And there was another one as well. Neither one of those came to fruition, but they actually, though, they were helpful in guiding discussions and stuff. So,
But EIDC, if I go back to the history a little bit, with the envisioning processes that we did, and then we did a lot of city walkthroughs in planning, like looking at the city and looking at the streets and talking, about the potential of many things. And that's how the Future Use Committee sort of came out of
Yeah.
the work that was laid down for that. So maybe that can be done again. I mean, we have mill tours here for us, but maybe we can open that up to be mill tours for more people with a look and tours of the potential elementary schools too. Like, since Union Street's gonna be worked on, maybe just include those little walking tours again, and then maybe a group of citizens would volunteer to be on Future Use.
no, that's a good
Your
point.
ideas down,
But
because
if
that's how it came
If that's what
about.
the mayor wants, I mean,
Right.
it's
Well-
gotta be,
Right.
it's gotta,
In
there's gotta be
partnership.
some guidance.
Well, you're right.
from the
You're right. The mayor has to
administration on
want that.
how they want it to be.
But my feeling is we can ask for that. If it's accepted, it's not accepted.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
accepted,
That's true.
and
That's
then,
true.
and the walking tours that Walt had for Cottage Street and those, that's good because it brought in, it's diverse, but it brought in outsiders' perspectives, which I think something like this, it's easy for a native, picking on me to say, well, center school should be parking, that's been stuck in my mind for years, but, outside perspectives might be a lot more valuable than mine,
I think the library across the street, I gotta go, but the library across the street, that needs expansion.
Yeah.
I feel like that could be some natural.
Well, there's a
connection
solution to
there.
that library, you should move it to the high school. There's plenty
That's
of
not
parking
walking
there.
distance.
It's not walking
No.
distance to people who need it.
I-
All right, I gotta go. Thank you, everybody.
So anyway, that's just a throwing out a flavor, and I'm gonna keep it on the, Tom's the chairperson of that school building committee, and, as things go along, we'll update, and then there'll be news coming on down the road, because of, spring of 2018 is, right, it's almost a year.
no, and I think that if we kick some tires and get discussion going.
Yeah.
It spreads to other wings, that it's not just sort of like, it's more than just the school that we're gonna get out of the deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that people
and-
can see a vision of other things that are positive from the situation.
You're absolutely right, and that's gonna be actually, a little bit vital, because,
I mean, if you just talk about the financial numbers that could come from those 3 lots.
well, and they're gonna be helpful to a certain degree, because even though we as taxpayers won't necessarily benefit directly, the hit on the impact on the city tax rate from the new project, whatever it's gonna be, is gonna be more significant than the high school project. So this is one thing that is gonna be, used as a selling feature, but it's a real thing though. I mean, if it can, so, okay.
Can we make a motion to say that we'd like to write a letter to the mayor and ask if she's considering having a future use committee again to discuss the buildings and that we'd be glad to help. I don't know.
Or
Is that-
what our role might be
Yes,
as we meet
yeah.
every month
Yeah.
to help
Yeah.
her with the
Yeah.
process of what direction to go in.
Yeah, because we have a little history and a model that worked well.
By all.
And we're volunteers that meet on a monthly basis to
Yeah.
discuss these sort of things.
Yeah.
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 What would she like us to,
Would she like to know?
yeah.
So by all means, so first, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'll
That's it.
You say it, you say it.
I say, I entertain a motion that we send a letter to the mayor saying that we would very much like to help in the planning process of how to deal with the upcoming three vacant school buildings. And if there is any way that we can help you in this process, we here as a volunteer group would be willing to do something along those lines.
And invite her to a meeting, a
Yes.
future meeting.
Any seconds?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, my only question now is, you want me to write the letter?
Please do.
I got the flavor, and,
Yeah, you
but
got
I
the
will,
flavor.
I'll,
Since you brought up the subject.
in violation of open meeting law, I will send it out for review. And-
Okay.
And if you have a comment, just send it
Okay.
out.
Well, as long as if you send out a draft
Yeah.
Yes.
and the responses go directly to you
Uh-huh,
and not to the
To the whole group.
okay.
then it's not violating.
Okay, yeah.
And then if you bring that letter to the next meeting and
Well, that's what,
for a final approval.
Okay.
thank you, that's what we'll do
Do
then.
not reply all.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Do not,
I'll,
our
Be-
difference in most things.
well, no, I'll put that, I'll just put it on the,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be, behind this, I'll be above board, I'll just say, draft, please respond individually if you have a response.
Okay.
And I will bring, I'll state on it that I will bring before the next meeting, so
Mhm.
that way we'll cover our bases. And I'm just looking for, a little bit of efficiency by doing it this way.
Right, no, that would.
So, okay, great, thank you.
We skipped the mill tours.
Yeah, I had just, maybe incorrectly, assumed that we're still in the same spot. Okay.
Okay, nothing to report.
But, yeah, and then, but I'm just gonna mention it, Gail mentioned in response, in, reference to the, school that, let's
Right.
make a note of myself. I have nothing about number 9 or number 10.
Okay.
We went over number 11.
Okay, just visit 10 again.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Not necessarily the over 55, but the general zoning.
Yeah.
I liked you bringing that topic up, and I was
Uh-huh.
talking to folks in town, and the idea of more residents downtown in storefronts
Okay.
was viewed as a positive manner.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I agree.
And, whether or not they kept the storefronts like a hotel lobby look or something, but the idea of putting bodies downtown, and somebody was saying that they get more for apartment rents than they do commercial storefronts. And that it's sort of if it was allowable, they do an heartbeat. So it's just so it's in general, can we look at that zoning and make suggestions or.
Well,
So right now,
Yeah.
it's only the first floor, the
Right.
ground level that can't have residential.
Mhm.
In the downtown business, highway business, neighborhood business. And
And that's what they were referring to, was that they wouldn't be
So-
too concerned about losing storefronts for residential.
Really?
I would be
I
concerned.
would be
I
concerned
would
with
be.
that.
well,
I would-
I think that the concern is legitimate, but when I first brought this up, it was in reference to some people that I had heard on the street talking about the hurry-scurry building. So just think about that building for a moment, or a building like that, that's small, no second story, and contained. And I think at the last meeting, I don't recall who, but someone said maybe a residence in the back of that structure. So what I would ask is if maybe along those lines, just people think for the next meeting, what example of a downtown residence you might like. Accessory, you know, to counteract the fear a little bit of losing downtown space. I look at it, the reason why I like the Hurry and Scurry was, to me, if it went residential right there, what's the big deal? And then maybe somewhere else there's another one like that, what's the big deal? I mean, I had no intention of all of a sudden a broad sweep that residences would be allowed on the first floor, because that'd be counterproductive, my opinion. So maybe, you know, the devil's always in the details.
Allow
and the
the
crap-
by variance or something
The
Well,
like
that's what
that.
I was
crafting.
gonna say,
Yeah.
if that were the
Yeah.
case and it was a case-by-case
Yeah, exactly.
situation, but I can't.
Or even
see-
maybe even, we could,
Maybe like owner occupied, that's what
Or-
they,
or
that's what this
studio,
person, this
yeah,
presentation
and
would be,
something-
like an owner occupied, where
Yeah.
you had like a little storefront,
right.
which, whether or not it
But we're
was,
talking about bringing more activity into the city.
Mhm.
You know, how much activity is an apartment on the first level going to,
But what if that,
perception, I mean.
well, part of it is also having bodies downtown.
Right, but if you have bodies downtown, you don't have any storefronts to occupy those bodies, then they're
But-
what?
but-
Right, there's definitely a balance,
you know,
a balance for
there's a
sure.
balance, but what if like, if, so you have,
But if there's
you
already
have a
a
street-
second floor residence
wait.
already going on.
If
you
you
have a
look-
building, if this is Hurry Scurry, poor Hurry Scurry.
Can I
So
ask a
wait,
question regarding Curry Square?
So-
I mean, what is the,
Wait.
structurally, is that building even structurally?
No.
No,
You are.
it's
So
not
anymore.
eventually it's
It's a tear
gonna
down.
come down,
It's a tear down.
The-
But-
and there could be a
But
second
just,
floor.
just envision somebody,
Louder.
that was creative, and they made themselves an efficiency apartment, and this was their studio. That's bringing activity, because the commercial place is viable.
And could you not address that property by property
Yes.
Right.
via special
Yes,
permit or
yes,
whatever?
exactly.
So
But the
there's
zoning
nothing
isn't allowed for
that
that at the
now.
moment.
Right now, the zoning says no ground floor residential
Right.
in those districts, and, you know, it's a balancing act.
Unless they're
And we-
grandfathered
we
in, right?
have, right, unless they're pre-existing,
I have a
not,
question
so,
for you.
you know, if you look at where we have our, downtown mixed-use overlay districts in the R10 neighborhood business district and along Parsons Street, you know, those are places where housing is allowed on the first floor only where it's been pre-existing. But no one's converting those to businesses.
Jay,
or,
do you know what the occupancy is of apartments that are above the first floor that are actually occupied? Is there any,
I
do you know
don't
what I
have
mean?
that data.
Well, the assessor would have that, because you have to file. the
So, I mean,
permit.
Well,
is there
then they'll
stuff-
have, they don't, I don't know if they know that it's occupied.
Yeah.
Well, they know that it's well, yeah.
Also, it's being rented.
Well, right now,
Yeah.
I mean, is
you
there,
can't get an apartment.
so they're occupied?
You're occupied.
Yeah.
But I lived through Cottage
I
Street
do.
as a young person here in the city of East Hampton when there
Did like a
were,
kitchen in it, yeah.
housing on the
I've been
first
like that
floor,
for a year.
and then slowly it's like changed back to business, and it's a much better functioning Cottage Street with the businesses on the
Yeah.
ground floor, and there's only, I think, only one residential that still lives on the first floor there.
Well,
So,
well, like anything else though, I mean, it's not, you know, I brought up the Hurry and Scurry, and, you know, I'm not hell-bent on solving that location, but if this discussion led to, a letter to the mayor that we would like to see some more accessory apartments, you know, in the downtown business district, that would be fine with me, you know, the idea is
Yeah.
to,
It almost seems to me like the bigger problem is what are we doing to attract businesses to fill those storefronts?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That would be the bigger question for me,
Right.
Yeah.
not occupying
Because
residential.
we have, what, 6,000 residential units in the city? And how many business locations? I think that where we have dedicated downtown business district, we don't need to encourage those conversions, because once they go, they're not gonna come back.
It feels to
Or
me
they're not gonna come back quickly.
that as the EDIC, it would be it seems like it would be more of our task to answer the question of bringing more business into those storefronts.
well, you know, I don't wanna, disagree with that, I mean, by all means, I guess I jump ahead because I see, you know, being even though I'm building, or my brother and sister and I are building, some, you know, mixed use on Northampton Street, and I have, I have 3 storefront office vacancies that will see an anniversary. And I just, you know,
So that's part of that, but that's part of what
Well,
I'm saying.
I know,
Besides,
but-
just because that's over there doesn't mean that that's not part of that whole,
Right.
what's driving us, we need to be working more on bringing.
yeah, but I guess I've jumped to the conclusion that, we need smaller office spaces. That's a personal business decision, or thought, but I see businesses, because of the impact of the internet and the changing times, I'm not so sure that we're ever gonna have, I agree.
The same brick and mortar is gonna be different. It's
I
gonna
agree
have a
that once
different
something is
look.
gone, it's gone. It's just no
Well,
different than a
I still
field. I
feel
mean, once
though-
the field is paved over, it doesn't come back to grass very often.
Well, but I
Yeah.
still feel that as a destination community,
Mhm.
which we are becoming more and more, the need, even though most folks are doing a lot of their shopping online, there's no doubt, and I agree with you,
Yeah,
Dave, but I also think that, my feeling is that there's always going to be a place for the boutique, get away from my computer experience.
Yeah.
oh, I
So
would,
think we're all
what
in
can we
agreement.
do
I
to
mean-
bring in the eclectic, the offbeat, the whatever, that people are not gonna be experiencing when they go to Amazon?
so then this hurry and scurry is leading into two discussions. Well, no, but no,
But you know, it's not even hurry screw, we're a little bit on the zoning rules, and I think some of the problem with zoning rules is they're not that flexible. I mean, you either can go for your variance with them, or you have your rule, or, you know, so it's interesting to sort of fast forward to how the changing times are and what the computers and employment's doing online or thing, and yet zoning, it is a little dated in the fact that
I don't
it's
know,
held
but-
to these rules
but I
that
don't-
don't flex. They
I'm
don't
not
flex.
sure
They
if
don't flex.
going after and changing zoning is going to answer the problem of driving feet and business down that.
But I do think, I think it's tangential because, you know, if you look at our table of uses and you look at what's allowed in those empty storefronts, you know, yeah, there's not residential allowed in them, but we also don't allow, you know, there's light industrial manufacturing uses that wouldn't be allowed in those storefronts
So,
either.
but what would?
There are, storage, so there's a lot of uses that aren't
Well,
allowed in those.
does that drive foot traffic? For instance, when I think about storefront occupied businesses, you know, once upon a time, I had a micro business, it was massage therapy, we were on the ground floor, we had no business being there.
Right.
We were not driving, we were not high foot traffic enterprise, you know? So that's,
Well,
is it a
but-
great space? Yeah.
But the
You know,
question
that's-
you bring
yeah,
up
but-
is, you know, it's no different than what the question that, is facing all of the malls.
Mhm.
You know, we have a mall that's not covered, you know,
But it's a different experience than
No.
going to a mall.
well, no, yes and no, but the malls are doing the same thing. They have, you know, the Hoyok Mall, if you take a walk, there's, I think, 15% vacancy right now. Wait, no, hold on. So they're starting to rechange their strategy, because they're like, wait, the question you just answered. What am I gonna do to keep driving foot traffic?
Right, so that's.
So, you know, they're becoming more, event driven, you know, they have, well, no, but, no, I mean, I'm saying, right, like in the Hadley Mall, they have the go-kart thing, you know what I mean, you know, recreation.
Yeah, Hoyok has
We don't
no
have any
children's
spaces
thing.
big enough for
Right.
recreation.
Well, right,
downtown.
but-
Well, we do in the highway business district.
Yes, we
You know,
do.
you-
Yeah.
You have different zones in different places, and
Roller skating.
and it,
Yeah.
But see, my answer to the question is more like, you know, the collaboration of KC and the Book Fest. That to me is what drives people downtown more.
Yes.
I mean, I just want the zoning to not be in the way. And the zoning's not in the way by any means.
I get that.
But you know what I'm
But
saying?
how to
is-
make it, so it,
But,
yeah.
you know, but even you take areas that went through gentrification, you know, the industrial areas.
If I agree with
I
that, it's
just-
in the way at the moment.
No, I didn't say it was,
Oh.
but we're static. You can see the vacancy, the office vacancy rate is not peaked yet.
Office.
Storefront, to me, storefront office is the same.
I
Because,
don't know, I disagree.
I would just be concerned I'm allowed to chime in even though I'm not a
Yes.
voting member, right?
By all means, by all means,
I don't
please
believe
do.
So I guess my feeling, I hear where Mo's coming from. I think like East Hampton's changing a lot and kind of like orienting ourselves like 3 years out, always 3 years out. Like, what is the best thing for East Hampton? What is the best thing for business? I think if you make a ground floor storefront into a residence, I mean, people aren't just gonna move into the store, into the empty store. You're building a kitchen, you're building all this stuff. You're really taking away its ability to be a storefront someday.
Oh, yeah.
And there would be a lot involved financially and otherwise in order to do that. So that's where I think that is a really important thing to keep in mind, is that you're not just making a decision for like this immediate desire to like have more bodies downtown. I don't like that expression. It feels, but yes, more people downtown. But it's cutting a cord for like what could be, when this isn't the problem anymore.
And
There's gonna be a
almost
problem soon of like what to do with all the people downtown. I mean, seriously. So I
They're
just
not-
think
They're not
that's,
there on Sundays, I tell you that much.
Yeah.
It goes down.
so it's just, I don't think it's simple.
No, but I think David bringing up the zoning, as far as a committee, it's something that we should have on our agenda every month to just talk about and think about, you know, maybe it's the over 55 is an easier thing to focus on, but just in general to be maybe sensitive to, you know, the back of the first floor can be, like you said, an efficiency, and therefore somebody can then rent the whole space.
But
I love to get keeping things in
are
transfer.
there a bunch of empty, second floor
That's
and
what I just
third
said, that she
floor?
has that,
That's
yeah.
the occupancy.
That, I mean, I
Well,
think
and I
that,
know that when Manchester's redid they knocked down a 2 or 3 story building to make it 1 story.
Right.
That was a management decision.
That was a, yeah, it was a.
She just didn't wanna
had
deal with
any
it.
money
Yeah.
in any, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but I mean, and I've heard, but I don't know for sure, but I've heard that there's some amount of the upper stories that are, maybe not
Pretty empty.
maybe not your properties, but
Yeah.
that there are vacancies in the upper
Yeah,
stories, and then.
usually what's driving those is, they're
I just don't
dated,
know
you
that
know,
we're
meaning they
asking-
have
Dated,
code, they
yeah.
have code issues.
Yeah.
this
I
and
don't
that.
know that we're asking the right question
Well-
to get the result that we need as far as those.
I think-
Well,
don't know
I
what
think the
is.
question I was
Think
asking
about
is
it.
a little bit more narrow than the question you brought up, and I think your question is very legitimate. You know, we can certainly put it on the thing. Why do we exist? I mean, what are we gonna do to drive more foot traffic downtown?
What you can do, and this is
Or
part of the
no-
55 and over,
no,
if you
no
have
traffic.
housing that because people do wanna live in towns where they can walk to things, to get things. If you have the housing, especially for 55 and
It's
over,
also surrounded by housing.
it is, but I think especially an older population. Yeah, I know it is. Well,
But
clear the,
I'm speaking specifically not necessarily, it's getting the businesses here. Like, what are we not providing for them, what are we not answering for them? What is the question
If
that
I
we're not
have
asking of
underwear.
ourselves to get to that point? Does that make any sense at all?
no, I know, you're not gonna be able to do that.
Well, I mean, I think that question, that question makes a lot of sense. I think though, unfortunately, it's a constant question, so we get kind of complacent about it.
Well, look at
But we
Northampton.
move on to another.
It's all
area.
restaurants.
Yeah.
There's not that many retail stores left in Northampton. It's
And
all
there's actually not-
restaurants.
There's
They're converted
way
to
less,
banks.
Well, they're
way less restaurants than there were.
Oh, I know. But people still come in to go to the restaurants more than anything else, and they might go to the occasional shop, but retail,
It's not what they're saying, when East Hampton to go to the restaurants.
well, I know.
That's what they're saying.
I know.
You know, so
I know.
it's no longer the,
but you
True.
know,
it was
Yeah.
for a long time.
I know.
And now it's not.
I
It
know.
still has some
No, I
strength,
know,
but
I
not
know.
really.
Well, I'm gonna keep this going,
Definitely.
because, it's easy to, discuss this theoretically, but I like to have this lead to something at some point. I mean, and I'm looking for base hits as well as home runs. So,
You know, and I think just look at the brewery there.
yeah.
You know, sort of what they're going through to get their things necessary, but they're a home run as far as what they are, as far as economic drive for the city.
But there's a good example of it. Think about the brewery, the three of them. They are located where the zoning allowed. But what if one was downtown?
That's different than housing.
Yeah, but
Again,
the Hurry Scurry thing was just the start of discussion. It wasn't the end.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
addressing zoning.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's it.
And the
it's-
table of uses. yeah.
Well, and I think, I think that one thing I think everyone, appreciates, but doesn't always vocalize it is, things are fast moving. And you can't, everyone knows that, well, we can't do things the way we used to do because we're past that. But things are fast moving, so what do we, when I say storefront office, you say they're not the same, but I know what you're coming at. But the storefront vacancy hasn't peaked.
I agree.
And so what are we gonna, like you say, what are we gonna do about that? And I think zoning might be one thing, like just maybe like Gail said, maybe if the zoning was just a little bit more flexible, I'm gonna be silly, it's like saying, so that, well, even like, you take Mary Ann going into Hackworth's, it's not a big deal. She's moving down there, I don't think they need to go before the planning board, I understand why. But our zoning still is cut and dry, and she should've just been able to just slide right in. It's just a business to a business, but
And it's related business.
I'm just using that for
Like
example, I'm not,
they don't
I
match.
had no issue with her coming before the planning board, but I'm just trying to say, she was an established business, she's moving.
Mhm.
Do you know why?
You know
It's
why?
connected to the dance studio.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's a
I
better
think
location
it's
for her.
much better.
So what it does,
Symbiotic, I think
and
it's-
then, yeah, and she bought, but it shows a networking piece that happens today. I mean, at One Cottage Street, there isn't a place available because all the artists network with everybody and they know who's who and who wants a place and who's coming in. And so the networking pieces to the city of East Hampton are crucial. Like downtown business people need to network so that their neighbor is like, I know Josh is looking for a place and it'd be great to have him in the store next to me. And, it just builds that whole community piece that networking does today. And people like that.
Well, then I would just
They
ask,
wanna be in part of
you
the
know,
places that they're wanted.
we keep it on, but, in the meantime, I don't want him to study, but everyone should go on the website, the city website, and just look at the table of uses of the zoning. Just kind of familiar yourself with how it's, and every community is different, I'll be honest with you, so I don't think it's, no, I mean, and then don't look at Northampton's, okay? Because you go backwards. But, just look at the table of uses, and all I'm gonna ask you is what your first impression is when you look at it. And then,
I'm gonna make another plug for the housing production plan while you're on the city website.
okay, it's on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And under the planning department,
Say that again, Jim?
housing production plan, under the planning department, forms and documents.
I wonder if we should be asking a series of questions. I mean, is zoning prohibitive? Is it regulation that's prohibitive? Is it rent that's
Well,
prohibitive? Like, what is it that's prohibitive?
That's fair, but you know what, I would prefer to not use the word prohibitive, because to me,
Okay,
no.
that's a lot,
No, because to me, it's, I'll say, it, it's right-wing loaded.
well, okay.
I wanna just, what
I
I'm trying to
didn't
get
get
is.
that word for.
No, what I'm trying to get out is, what could we do to enhance the zoning, so to speak? What could we tweak
I
it?
guess my
But
question is.
even when you go to the city website, okay, I went to the high school website today because I was tweaking the library one and I didn't do something right, I need to fix something. And something else was on the high school site, so I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do. But I went to the part where it talked about gifts to the school, donors, and I dropped down the little menu and there was like two little people's names that like had given or something, but they, like the whole boat of public relations and PR work around what does it take to give a gift to the school, how do you go about giving a gift to the school, I mean, all these things that invite people with information to like look at our businesses and look at, like that little donor section there on the school site. It's like, well, use that. If you're putting that out there, what are you just putting two names for? You should like embrace that and have a form that this is how you donate and this is the letter that will accept your donation and we're so excited to have you contribute. So the same thing has to be done by the cities to invite the people to come that work extremely exciting. So marketing and PR work and
But I think
all
we have to
that
be
jazz.
realistic of what the stock is for retail businesses in town, and they're small, which is fine in one hand, and very reasonably priced, which is a great thing. But what kind of business are you gonna put in there, that's going to draw foot traffic? And that's the toughie in this day and age, and many have tried, and maybe they're coming in with too low of, expectations and budgets to keep it going for more than, a year, but at the same time, if I was a young person again, and believe me, I went through my business shop phase on Martha's Vineyard for quite a few years, trying to figure out what made sense, and I think it's really tough today to come up with a business that you figure, I can really make some money at this, or at least sustain myself, And I think it's really tough to come up with
Well,
things
even when you go
that
to
make
all
sense.
the artist craft sales, I mean, how many
Yeah.
pairs of earrings do you need to
Well,
buy? I mean,
exactly,
there's gazillion
exactly,
pairs of
exactly,
earrings, and it's like,
exactly.
Oh,
You
the
know.
butcher coming.
I don't know.
Yeah, the butcher is great. The stuff like that is great, and
Yeah. But we need the
probably a
butcher
few
to
more
talk to the
residents.
next person.
So-
Residents.
I'd ask you to just keep thinking about that and try to bring something, and we'll try to formalize it. I'm gonna, jump past 12, and number 13,
Well, Bush
Yeah.
wishful thinking, huh? Trump gets his way, forget, EV charging stations.
well, I'm not worried
I
about
think,
it. I'm not worried about it.
think beyond him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna be
Well,
fine.
just in general, I mean, I think he'll come around on this just simply because, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal this week and another paper last week how China is ramping up solar.
Oh, yeah.
So that's he'll
Oh, he's gonna
He'll
be
come on
competitive.
board.
Yeah,
yeah.
But, when I wrote inventory, I mean, I don't know, I should wrote a question mark. Is there an inventory? I know, the only charging stations I know are at the high school.
I
That's
don't
it
know of
right
any
now.
inventory.
Okay,
Not in East Hampton.
Yeah.
right,
There should be.
yeah, so then, okay, and then, so I was gonna ask that, for next, meeting, people just think about possible locations.
By the
Yeah.
City Hall,
Well, yeah, I
parking
mean,
lot,
I just,
the
but,
logical one.
and then, cause then I like to get a, maybe either next meeting or the meeting after, put out a little letter to the mayor saying that we encourage EV
Yeah.
stations.
Yep.
Yeah,
You
go
know,
for it.
with the new school, it's gonna be automatic because it's part of what they call CHIPS. I forget what CHIPS is an acronym, I forget what it stands for, but basically it's,
Incentive stuff.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And, they get some more reimbursement the more green they are, and so they'll have them. The one at the high school, I just been looking out for it. There might be more than one, but I seen the one in the parking lot used, every day last week by a different car. I think,
There's two, there's a couple, of them. One in
Yeah.
the front row and one in that.
No,
that
I know
row,
one of
the
them,
first
I
lot.
recognize, well, one car, actually a different car, one car switched locations, but, so I assume he's an employee, or he or she's an employee.
Yeah, he's from Amherst.
Okay.
That's good.
He drives over, charges up.
So I'm gonna try to, I mean, Josh is awesome with the minutes, and, but I'm gonna try to get, jog our memory, closer to this meeting, and then a reminder so that when we come to the meeting, anyone has any ideas. But I think I will include zoning. And my last question I have, what's this possible business? What is it? I mean, I never heard of it.
Sick?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, they're awesome. They're over in Mill at 80, I think.
Popsicle.
No,
Oh,
she's
popsicle.
done.
Keystone,
Yeah.
it is Keystone Building,
Yeah.
Homemade
and
popsicles.
they do homemade,
Yeah.
They're just amazing.
All
They're like,
natural.
it's like 100% fruit.
oh my god.
So is it
She has
walk-up
a bicycle.
business, or did
No,
she
she
just?
has a,
She
she has
has
a,
a-
she has a bicycle.
She does,
Bicycle.
yeah, she does
Oh.
It's actually a
Bicycle.
tricycle, it's a tricycle.
Oh, whatever.
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
that's right.
that's another
Smaller.
point, keep the, at least the sections that are closest downtown of the bike path open year round, because that gets used by a lot of pedestrians and bicycle people. You wanna drive business to
Come to East
downtown,
Hampton.
keep it open.
Yep.
Keep it open up to the end of the Southampton line and at least up to, the other
Getting
end.
back to the EV stations.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fort Hill.
Does anyone know what the business model is in Northampton? I mean, because they have some of the Thorns parking lot, and they have some at the bottom of Crafts Avenue.
Yeah,
Oh, you're talking about.
And for me, they're free. All I have to do is pay for parking.
yeah.
But does the city provide electricity?
I was gonna say, who pays for that?
I don't know.
And who paid for the installation? That type
I've heard a lot of different things, and I can see if I can track some
Okay.
stuff down, but,
Because I know Big Y has, they have
um,
a one there, and I would imagine that they put it in, and pay for it as a draw for customers. But, I mean, the things in downtown Northampton, I have no idea how they're funded. Yeah, if you
I
find
have
it, that would be
new
great.
business.
Oh, go ahead.
There's if you haven't seen the Facebook page for the chamber yet today, we just welcomed a new member and a new business opening up on Nashawanek Pond. They're gonna be doing, valley paddlers, they're gonna be doing
Oh,
boat rentals, kayak, paddle boats, and the such.
Wow.
They're gonna do, as of May, the latter end of May. So be on the lookout.
That's cool.
Great,
Um,
good news.
is that Mike?
Mhm.
I know Mike was talking about, on the paddle boat trial, but.
Oh, my task,
Yeah.
no, it's,
okay.
a couple, Melissa, can't remember her last name, and, a married couple, Melissa and Katie. The Valley Paddlers.
And speaking of bikes, I forget their
Great.
name. It's Pedal People.
mhm.
They're coming to town now.
Are they
They
really?
are? Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Good for them.
I don't know of, what kind of rollout they're having. They are coming to
Oh,
town.
wow.
Roll out, get it?
Well, this isn't at the top of your page.
Sorry?
This isn't at the top of the East.
It's on my Facebook page.
Oh, your personal?
Your
Facebook?
personal? No, it's on the chamber page.
It's not at the top. Or
It's
does
on,
it-
it's on.
Everybody else.
Okay.
No,
Any-
that's just
wait,
how they,
Yeah.
that's how they
Any other new
organize
business?
organizational
Anything good for the board?
pages.
Good for the people?
No, I move we adjourn.
Wait, in 4:25 is fine for next meeting?
Yeah.
4:25?
425?
Yeah, I took the,
Is that the third Tuesday? I don't
I
think
think it is, no, it's not, it's the 4th.
It's the
Next
4th.
meeting is
Oh,
25th.
425.
I forgot why.
At 4.
No, hold on, wait, that wasn't set in stone yet.
I think we should try to stick with the third.
And that's fine with me, I, don't know why I picked that date. Okay.
I'm not here on the 18th, so I won't be able to come.
But no, I'll,
I may not be here on the 18th.
Yeah, so the 25th works better for me. You need 6 people at the table.
Yeah.
I might not be able to come.
No,
I
we-
just
no.
arranged for a gallery volunteer on the
On the-
third Tuesday of every month.
So
Oh, really?
maybe we should keep it the 20th.
On every
Yeah,
month?
cause I'm at the gallery all day, so I
So
can
she just
cover.
arrange it so you can be here.
But that's okay.
no.
Yeah, no,
What-
that's
what-
the same
what do you
with the
think they're-
volunteer.
they're there for?
I arranged for volunteer on the third Tuesday of every
Okay.
month.
Yeah, well, we'll leave it that way then. I,
So then we should be the fourth then, right?
No.
No.
No, she's
No.
covering me now, so I can be
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we should stick with the 18th.
yeah, well.
She's not.
18th, and then
She's
what,
not
and
volunteer.
you wanna change the time a bit? Is
No.
that
It should be
No,
4
I didn't
o'clock.
mention that, or, I.
4 o'clock?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it's.
So I won't be here on the
Okay.
18th, just so you know.
You won't be.
I think I.
Well, I
might-
think
I'm
maybe
in
that's why,
California.
that's school vacation.
But don't
Yes,
change
it
it,
is,
if
and I'm
like,
in- and I'm-
No, we're not
people
gonna change
can't
it.
be here next
No, no, no,
month,
no.
don't do it
No,
twice.
It's generally the third, it's
No.
generally the
It's
third.
It's always the
Okay.
third.
Yeah, it's always the
Cool for
third.
you.
You goof.
All right.
Yeah, and I just, so 18th,
18th
and then I'll
before-
take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
See you later. Thank you. So if anybody wants some cards from Pasquina.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
if anybody
taking
wants
some
to,
for-
I have like millions and billions, so
Take
take
it
what
to
you
the
want.
office.
And I have them in the library already.
I have
And on the
your,
window.
Oh,
yeah.
I like the
Galaxy,
public
or at least
stuff.
the Old Town Hall, they're helpful.
Yeah, bring your own town, I'll make a meeting tomorrow,
Okay, cool.
because Johnny's on board for dinner brunch. Two of us
Oh, I'm glad you had a little something there.
are.
And if you didn't come, you wouldn't have had a.
Is it spring yet?
Great.
Do you have a, yeah, right, do you have a
Very
quick
nice.
second?
Yeah.